we're going to crack straight on with 5 more sessions this afternoon, and we're going to get right back to the theme of agentic AI in procurement. And this panel is sponsored by Icertis. So this panel is going to be moderated by someone who really does know what they're talking about, Michael Van Keulen at the far end of the line. I thought I'd just big you up there, Michael.
Thank you.
Yeah,
so you didn't tear me down after.
Just the pressure, yeah, absolutely. Shall I run through who we have here? Amandeep Malik, Head of Enterprise Technology Procurement at WTW, the insurance brokerage. It's Martin Moore, Vice President Alliances at Icertis. John Ferry, Global Procurement Director, Strategy and Operations Lead and Digital Transformation Lead at Accenture. That's a cracking long job title. Welcome back to the stage, I think, for John Majubi, Chief Procurement Officer at Bolt. From Reach PLC, the publishers, Head of Procurement there, Sarah Jane Pedden. And Michael, over to you for the next 45 minutes or so.
Thank you. Thanks. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm glad I'm not right before happy hour, so it's good to see everyone here. My name is Michael Van Keulen. I'm currently the Chief Customer Officer at Green Cabbage. Until recently, I was with Coupa, so I saw Tricia earlier on stage as well. Great pleasure to be here. I've been in procurement and supply chain for over 20 years. What I wanted to do is maybe just go across the panelists and just give a little bit of context of who you are, what you do in your roles, and why we're here together today. So first, Sarah, please, off to you.
Absolutely. Yep. Hi, everyone. Sarah Jane Pedden, Head of Procurement at Reach PLC. For those who probably don't know, Reach PLC is a company. We're the UK's largest media publisher, so you might know our titles such as The Express, The Daily Mail, and probably those people that annoy you constantly when you're trying to look at news online, come up with lots of ads. That's us. Sorry about that. So my career early on was more in direct procurement, so I worked in oil and gas and energy sectors for Siemens and Schlumberger, so mainly looking after sort of manufacturing and parts and aftermarket. More recently into tech sourcing, so my role at Reach PLC is transforming our procurement function to be more of a sort of centre for excellence for procurement and driving technology excellence and transformation.
Cool.
Hi everyone, John Majubi. I'm currently the Chief Procurement Officer at Bolt, which is a ride-hailing company out of Estonia. First sort of Estonian company that achieved unicorn status. We're in more than 50 countries, 4,000 people, and growing like a mushroom. I come from sort of more structured industries rather compared to ride-hailing. Worked in BAT, British American Tobacco, FMCG, then banking for quite a few years, and now I'm in Bolt. What we're doing at Bolt, we're building a procurement function from the ground up, and what we're doing is to sort of adopt all these good new technologies that are out there and bring them in, given that sort of we have a different audience altogether versus what I'm used to in my past life. Yep, I'm happy to be here.
Cool.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's John Ferry, and I'm working for Accenture. 9 years in procurement. My background before that was actually hospitality, so I think I fell into procurement along the way. I'm leading innovation and transformation, which is basically a team of people who look after our data governance, our continuous improvement agenda, right through from source to pay, and then now the new topic that we're going to talk about, agentic model, the technology. Really interesting space to be right now. Lots of things happening, and happy to share some ideas and thoughts on that.
All right, my name is Martin Moore. Pleasure being here. I'm from Icertis. Believe it or not, I started my career in procurement as well. Almost 30 years ago, I bought intermediates for textile dyes at a chemical company. And then about 2 decades ago, I moved into tech, was working at procure-to-pay players, source-to-contract, procurement suite vendors, IBM, who did Watson, some of you might remember, and joined Icertis about 8 years ago, running alliances. So working closely with Accenture in a 360 relationship as a customer as well as a partner. And we are doing agentic AI. So happy to join this panel and share a little bit what we see, what customers are doing, what's working, what isn't working, let's be honest. There's not everything great, but I think there are a couple of really nice stories to share. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. So, Amardeep Malik, I'm at Willis Towers Watson, WTW. I'm currently the head of enterprise technology procurement over there. Been in procurement about 13, 14 years. Bit of a geek at heart, so I always like the new tech and trying to get myself involved with what the new stuff is and how it's coming up and how we can really use it. Oversee some of the largest vendors that we have within the company, so it's a great way of bringing in how we can use agentic AI within procurement itself.
Yeah, very cool. So thanks you all for being here. We are going to take questions, so please prep them. We have 40 minutes left or so. So we have some scripted questions, but please think about your questions. We'll definitely have some time. And of course, at happy hour, we're all happy to have a conversation. Maybe, Amardeep, if I can stay with you, you just talked about agentic AI. So are we at an inflection point in procurement when it comes to agentic? Like, how do you think about that?
I think for us, this is the start of the moment when we really move procurement from automation to autonomy. So using agentic AI isn't just now. Currently we use it for speeding up processes, but the more and more it'll evolve, the more we're going to get it to use to do other things. So, look at more contractual decisions, more in-depth stuff, rather than if I do this, can you do an output like that? And when we do that, that's going to really change how procurement operates at its core for me. So.
Right. Yeah, it's the tactical, repetitive, right? That finally. How about you, Sarah? How do you guys apply it?
I think with procurement, it's shifting from that sort of operational member through to that value-added team. And I think where I'm seeing AI and technology is that it's becoming that enabler, and I don't think it's quite ubiquitous yet in the sense of we're not using it for all parts of our daily lives and our daily jobs, but we're using it to kind of enable us and support us. And I think where I'm starting to see the shift is really that procurement can use AI to automate a lot of those sort of day-to-day boring tasks that we will have to do operationally, and then allowing that sort of more focused time to work on supplier relationships, work on stakeholder relationships, and that sort of day-to-day laborious stuff is becoming, we can automate that, we can use AI to help us with it, and I think that shift is starting to happen. I think with agentic AI, I don't think we're quite at that point of the sort of tipping of we're all using it and it's working really well, but I think it's that point of being ubiquitous is starting to happen, and I think will be in the next few years.
Yeah. How about at Accenture, John? Where do you guys stand?
I think we started off a few years ago to have a kind of strong vision on the steps needed to get to sort of, I suppose agentic wasn't even a thing we talked about a few years ago, but we talked about an autonomous procurement, because everybody talks about procurement to be a strategic business partner. How can you do that when the people are tied up in so much manual work? This is the pivotal moment to actually use agentic, but you need to think about it really from a framework perspective. How can you create the vision internally to get to agentic, because there are steps to go through. So we're at a nice place where we've got the right foundations in for process, technology, good data, and now we need to start working with the agentic model, but you have to have that vision, create it internally within a team, and then start to leverage the other pieces that come along with that through relationships with vendors, etc.
Yeah, very cool. So John, at Bolt, you just said that you guys are growing at lightning speed. I imagine that part of that has to be technology. And so how do you apply agentic in your process today?
Good question. Put it this way, there's a lot of hype. So if you look at it at the organization level, I don't think we need to look at it at the functional level, at the higher level. All these companies starting work streams, groups to look at what can AI do for them and what does it mean in day-to-day business. And there's a lot of hype from the market side as well. Vendors coming forward with marry the different solutions. We can do this for you, we can do that. What we're doing in Bolt, in particular, we've taken a step back thinking, am I just going to roll this out for the sake of bringing in AI and being a leader, or we're going to bring in something that actually delivers something for the business? So we are very cautious. In the span of 6 months, I think the organization went and onboarded maybe 150 different solutions. And at some point, the tech team had to sort of pull the handbrake and say, guys, stop. This is a mess. Let's get together and come up with a sort of shared vision. What we're doing in procurement particularly, we're looking at what we can do in short term without that having that overarching vision to help the function in a business do what they need to do. And trying to sort of cherry pick the technologies that we know works, and not sort of buy into the hype, buy into the functionality and actually what's doable.
Yeah, focus on the problem first,
Yep.
right? And then start thinking about technology and operating model and those types of things, right? Martin, you support, of course, tons of customers all around the globe from iCertis. What are you hearing from your customers in terms of applicability, what works? Just walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, some of the statements already pointed in that direction. It's a variety of customers in different maturity levels. Also depending on the complexity of your businesses, right? So it's not like you can ask ChatGPT a question and then you get an answer which exactly addresses your business problem. So what we see is, maybe Accenture is an example, and we had just a panel together where we spoke about how advanced Accenture is in adopting this technology because they already did the homework. So it's very much depending on what is the business problem you try to solve. Is it an efficiency gain? Do you want to do more with less? Is it a specific analytics problem you want to solve with the technology? But you need to be prepared. And then you have the other extreme of customers who are not really tech enthusiastic. They think that it's maybe where's my data going, right? So typical stuff. Can I allow every user in my organization to send out certain information to an LLM which sits somewhere in the world? So there's a lot of cautious. So as a technology vendor, you need to consider that. You need to help the customer, embark them on the journey, start with digitizing contracts, because we are focused very much on contract data we think it's a strategic asset. Put it in a safe environment, and then step by step helping the customer embarking on that journey. I think that's the right approach.
Yeah, I like and I encourage everybody here in the room to think about it when you talk to all of these companies that are out there in their booths, is how is your AI learning? What data is being used, and how can I trust the outcomes of whatever the algorithms are going to tell me? Right? The underlying data will ultimately determine the quality of whatever outcome you're going to be prescribed by an AI or generative AI, right? I mean, is that kind of where you were going?
Exactly right. So I think nowadays with the LLMs, how have they been trained?
Yeah.
So the approach we take is we have a contract platform, so you have your own contracts in your own environment, in a safe place, and now you apply maybe different LLMs. Because there's Harvey out there, Thomson Reuters I mentioned, have also tons of data and a trained LLM. And then you have the OpenAI. So why not using the specific LLMs, which is best for your industry and for the specific use cases?
Yeah.
I think this is where this technology is moving to. There will be more and more startups. I think we are a little bit, and you mentioned that, Sarah Jane, it's a hype cycle, right?
Yeah.
And I think we will see a consolidation pretty soon on these LLMs.
100%. So Sarah, if I come back to you, we always talk about the human in the loop. I attended a few other sessions earlier today.
Sure.
How important is it to have that human in the loop, and what are your thoughts, and how do you apply that?
Yeah, I think when I'm thinking about technology transformation in general, procurement, we are the gatekeepers for our companies sourcing technology, and I think often teams are guilty of just jumping into solutions and looking for tech to solve their issues or their problems or their use cases. And I think it's really important to take that step back and to answer your question around the sort of human input, is that really understand what your use cases are, what are you trying to solve, what is the replacement of that human process that you're targeting. So for example, it's CLM and finding your contracts in an easy to manage way, or whether it's sort of using AI to intelligently identify risks. I think just making sure you're clear on that. And I think not operating in silos. So if you're looking for transformation, looking for tech, don't just think about how it's going to solve your issue, but think how that can ultimately solve bigger requirements in your organisation. So if it's procurement, often you've got data privacy, legal, finance are involved. So I think make sure that those people are involved in your technology transformation as well. And I think, as we've talked about, getting your data points correct, getting your processes identified and clear is really important. And that's where the human point comes in, because you've got to have that data source and have the right processes established before you dive into that.
Now, Amardeep, how do you, at your organization, how do you find the right balance?
Well, the balance is one thing, but I think, especially with AI, it's very easy to lose track of how important the human is in the whole of this process. right? It's really easy for us to get caught up on the wave of this is the latest tech, this is how it should be going, and this is the direction we should be going into. But you know, we've got to remember, deep down, procurement is about using our judgment, right? It's about the right ethics. It's about building relationships and combinations of these things in order for us to do our job well. We've heard throughout the whole day about how procurement has evolved from just purchasing to this, you know, behemoth that it's now becoming into. And AI can't do that, right? So I think you've really got to take the humans, which is us, our colleagues, we've got to take them on the journey with us, right? We've got to be telling people why we're implementing this AI, what this AI is going to do, how, and really use it to enhance what they do. And if we can get that balance right, for me, I think that's when procurement turns into a proactive department as opposed to something that's reactive.
Yeah. Yeah, I've sometimes called procurement, and the thing that we need to focus on is storytelling.
Yeah.
Right, telling the right story, making sure that it resonates with the audience, and that we're very clear of what outcomes we're trying to achieve. At least from my experience, having done transformation in my past as well, that really served me really well. Like the storytelling element, and that's something that we have to train and teach ourselves how to do a better job at that. John, at Accenture, how have you, because I know that you've went through a transformation yourself, how did you do that?
Back to the agentic and human in the loop, I call it human-centric agentic, because you can't do anything without involving your people, your stakeholders, and it's really just another technology. But to me, you know, it is the buzzword of today, but there's so much that has to get done before agentic. The plan in advance where you're looking to elevate procurement, and really we're in a fortunate place today where we're working with the C-suite, but to do that you need to prove the value of procurement back to your storytelling. So you have to pilot some AI, and AI has been around for a while. I mean, a lot of people are using AI and they probably don't know it. It's in a lot of the SaaS solutions. So when you start to look at the value of procurement, showcasing the value of procurement and building out the model, you need to get back to the stakeholders and prove the value for them to put more investment in. The problem I think a lot of people have is, where do I put AI into my procurement function? And if you were here for one of the last presentations where my ex-colleague, who's in the audience, 95% of pilots are failing in this area, which is a really scary statistic. And it means that we're not looking at the right business cases, the right use cases to look at. We're not involving the right people to make it successful. And that actually doesn't work to anybody's benefit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's also, you know, the concept I've always tried to apply is, you know, fail fast and move on. So maybe that 95% has some element to that. But yeah, it is fair. Yeah, we need to look at what are we trying to solve for before we start to, you know, applying anything. John, at Bolt, like ethics, when we think about AI, immediately comes up, like ethical use, and how do you ensure ethics when it comes to applying technology?
We're not there yet.
Okay.
It's something that will come, but we sort of started thinking about where and when and how to look into it. Like autonomous buying agents and that sort of thing, how you make sure you build something that when it starts operating, ethics are sort of incorporated into that. That's one area. Or sort of supply selection, all the due diligence that we need to do. How can AI come in and help us from making sure we meet our regulatory requirements, company sort of ethics, all those stuff. But to be honest with you, we're not there yet, so I need to pass on that question to.
Yeah, it's all good. It's a journey. We're in it together. Martin, maybe you can talk about ethics as it comes to, you know, how iCertis does this, and how do you support your customers with that? It's a tough one, yeah.
It is an absolutely talking point. It's not just security, where the data resides. It's also about what can the machine, let's call it a machine, do, and how much does it maybe harm our business or the individuals, talking about human in the loop. And the way I see it, it's more a personal statement, is it's not an emotional thing, right? It's not a human being, that technology, so it will not make decisions in an empathic way. So you have to tell what is the rule in your organization, right? What does ethic really mean? What is fair? What you expect from an agent, let's call them agent, to give you advice on. So it's all about feeding. That's why I think, again, homework. What does ethic mean for your organization? What do you want a co-pilot or an agent tell your employees when they make a decision? So therefore, in my opinion, it's how you train the system. And it should be on ethics. And I think some of you remember when ChatGPT came out, and it's just 3 years ago, the initial responses you got on the prompt were racists, there was all sorts of bias, and all sorts of very dangerous content which came out. And this further evolved. Why? Because you need to train the technology. It's like a child running around. You can tell them you can do everything, damage this, that, or you tell a little bit what does human being mean, right? How can you live and work with each other? So I think you should train this technology.
No, it makes sense. Sarah, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's really interesting. I always think of an analogy sometimes. If I'm looking on YouTube how to change the oil in my car, it might tell me how to do it, but I certainly can't do it. So I think that kind of training element is really important. And I think a lot of the technology companies are jumping to the solution rather than thinking about how can we actually train these solutions to be more effective and deliver what my customer really needs. And I think sometimes I've found that frustration with certain technologies that kind of jump to that as opposed to actually really thinking about, how can I adapt with my customer and what they need and adapt to things like, ethical sourcing, explainability, whatever it might be, and kind of learning with that. And I think, especially in the sort of risk area, if I take that as an example, it's something that's progressing and changing so quickly, and whether it's regulatory requirements or cybersecurity, how does it keep up with those changes in regulations? And that's probably something that kind of, if I think about that, the training side becomes more important. How does it not only learn and train, but also adapt and upskill? So I think it's important to think of an agent in that way. It's the same as a procurement professional. How do you keep them up to date? How do you train them? How do you keep them in the know of everything that's happening? And I suppose that still goes back to that human element. It's still really important.
Yeah, love that. I'll come back to you, Amardeep. From an implementation standpoint, what are some of the advice that you would want to share with the audience and some lessons learned along the way?
I think when it comes to implementing AI, firstly, start small. Look at something that is got a high impact but a low risk. Something that you can prove works, helps, and really augments rather than replaces. And I think the next thing is, I'll keep going back to the human element of this whole thing, is the change management. Without the change management, without your people being on board, without, again, everybody understanding what you're doing and why you're doing it, you can buy the best AI in the world, but if nobody is using it because they don't know how to, or they don't know why they're doing it, and there's just no consequence to them for them to do it, then it's going to fail anyway.
Yeah, no, makes sense. How about you, John, at Accenture?
Trial and error at the start. No,
sure.
I would, share the learnings from doing some of the pilot work. I would look at it in 3 areas. I agree with the opportunities where to go after, and I mean, there's plenty of AI solutions available out there. But it's not about putting AI in for the sake of AI. You need to look at the process steps and understand the processes end to end and look for the opportunities. That process is going to change. So until you understand the as-is to the to-be, what's going to change, you need to map that out really well. And then on the second part of the process, it's kind of like looking at your technology, because either it's going to get changed from maybe you need to look at addressing some of the data gaps that your technology stack, probably some of the AI elements, and others could be part of that, and then change management to what you just said. Not just change management, but the operating model, because the reality is that the organization will change, the operating model will change, roles will change, some of the role specs, some of the various aspects of a role spec will be done by AI. So going about it that way makes you think about it differently, and then you start to look at what am I able to control in-house, build in-house, or leverage with my partners, and then you have a much more succinct plan to be successful. That's kind of where we are today at Accenture, which is kind of the framework we're using. And it definitely helps the teams to come along the journey. We absolutely make people take the training on AI. They need to understand the basics of Agentic. Anyone working at Accenture has to have that, and then particularly in my team and the continuous improvement team. And it does make the work we're doing right now more successful. I can see the results.
Yeah. No, I love that. Like, rather than changing to people, make people part of the change. Be transparent, be clear, and don't consider it potentially a threat.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Maybe I'll get back to you, John. Because let's talk about people, right? We just it's a nice little bridge. So thank you, John, for that. Are we augmenting? Are we replacing? Are we doing both? Where would you see that?
I don't think we're at the place that we can replace. I don't think technology is there yet. And we had sort of first-hand experience. One of the leaders in our company saw the opportunity, wanted to reduce 20% headcount, replace it with agents. We went to market, we really tried to find a solution that does that. And it was within the legal operations, replacing basically lawyers with AI agents. But when you go and start looking at the actual technology out there, and one of the problems I think it's becoming more and more real is providers in the market, they will never tell you no. If you go and talk to someone, it's always there, can do, but when you actually go to implement, things start to fall apart. So I don't think we're at the place to replace people, but again, majority of the things that are called, for instance, from my perspective, transactional, non-value add, things that are people actually doing with hands today, could be automated by AI quite easily. From a back-end perspective, you look at the entire source-to-pay stack, majority of the things that actually needs somebody entering something, AI could confidently replace majority of it today, from coding, processing, all those things. But again, more complicated aspect that actually human needs to look into things, put brain power into it. We're still not there, but I don't see it being too far away.
Yeah.
The way, again, within the CLM contracting space, the way the whole thing is evolving.
Yeah.
I tell my team, just drop it in ChatGPT, it gives you a very good reading of the contract. Lawyers miss stuff that ChatGPT will pick up.
As long as you do this in a trusted, secure environment,
Yes, right?
I think fine. Otherwise, I'd say have a chat with your
100%.
head of global risk and compliance, because they might be not super happy with that. Martin, what are you seeing with iCertis and all of your customers there?
So I would be lying if I would say that customers are not trying to replace human beings by agents, because those agents are, they never sleep, right? So there's quite an idea of, hey, there are certain tasks, and not just the repetitive tasks, also tasks where you need to consider different sources to prepare maybe a decision, right? So you can, you want to analyze your contracts, and then you ask the agent, hey, can you please check whether there's any sanction right now we need to comply with, or is there tariffs we need to consider? Do we have put-through clauses in our contract? Can you maybe make a mass amendment? So there are all sorts of, but I think most of our customers are coming from a place where they have not even digitized all their contracts.
Yeah.
So they really start, first of all, and as you said, do all the homework, John, right? So digitize your contracts, understand your processes, define the as-is, and then think really where's the to-be. And the to-be not necessarily need to be that you automate everything. It could be, you mentioned autonomous procurement. We also thought a lot about autonomous contracting. Why shouldn't have two machines figure out which one is the best agreement in both interests, right? And then this is the basis maybe for close to signature. But in all honesty, I don't see in a short foreseen time that any software we see out there on the floor or iCertis replace an entire function.
Yeah.
There's still the human being also. At the end, it's decision. Who's accountable? Who's responsible for the decision, right? Who will be fired if the decision was not right?
Yeah.
So there's the human factor who gets more augmented with technology, and therefore can make better decisions. But many companies are catching up from far behind to get to that stage.
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense. Amardeep, anything you wanted to add to that?
I agree with everything that everybody said, but why don't we look at something with a slightly different tinge on it? So I think one of the earlier panel talks, someone was talking about the junior procurement members. And we all know if you've been in procurement long enough, you start off by doing the grunt work, the heavy lifting, and it's a while before they'll trust you to do something a bit better, and eventually you get called this label as strategic, right? But strategic just basically means that you're able to process a thought pattern into a way of affecting a really good outcome. Now, John from Bolt, you're absolutely right. AI is not there yet, but very soon it's going to be at this point where we can take that heavy lifting out. We can let AI do that. And then can you imagine how procurement would be if all of a sudden our junior members are now more empowered and more equipped to make strategic decisions, to not have to spend the first 5, 6, 7 years of their career doing this grunt work and get, oh, now it's a bigger contract and so on. And all of a sudden, we have these next generation people coming into our teams, thinking in the way that they think that we're possibly not thinking, and bringing that intelligence to procurement. It could absolutely change the way our departments operate.
Yeah.
Michael, if I can just
Yeah.
add to what you just
Yeah.
said, Amar. I mean, I have teenager kids at home. The way they adopt technology is unbelievable, right? And I think all companies in the room, you're looking for talents, right? So you want to have a junior buyer, you want to equip this talent with the technology, and they will ask for. I think they will ask for, hey, do I have a tablet? Can I use certain technology? Because they use the way they are educated in school, university nowadays, how they prepare for a test. It's unbelievable. My kids tell me constantly how to use this technology and how they get the maximum out of it. So therefore, I think any company needs to be prepared and have some thought around AI, how to use it in a safe environment, just to get the talents into your company.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, totally. All right, so let's wrap up the questions. I just have one more question, and then please get your questions ready in the audience. If we just go down the road here, starting with ladies first, Sarah, where do you think procurement, 3, 5 years out, like where do you think we're going? And just real quick, if you don't mind, so we have some time for Q&A in the audience.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I think there's already a bit of a trajectory where procurement is becoming more of that kind of seat at the board member, so they're kind of seen as a value-added function where we can really concentrate on contributing to growth and not just cost saving. So I think that is happening, but I think to our points we've just been discussing here, I think AI and technology is an enabler to really propel procurement to be better prepared to make those strategic decisions and have the right information quickly to hand. And I think to your point that, when I started out, certainly there was a few years where you were just doing that data analysis, you're having to prepare all of the information. I think if you can be enabled and be more confident to present those strategies to the board and your senior stakeholders, I think procurement is just going to continue shifting to be that sort of key partner, not just that operational team. So I think that's the way I see it going.
Right. Go ahead. Bless you.
I think from our perspective, we need to be prepared for a major shift, major change in procurement overall. The current sort of conventional ways of procurement running will change. And I'll give you a few examples. Now we have category managers working on a strategy, high level. We need external data sources, all those stuff. The way I see it is with this whole AI evolving and changing, the nature of that whole category management principle will change. The way business usually interacts with procurement, I think quite quickly will change entirely as well. And I could give a good example. If you give a phone to my daughter, she doesn't hold it next to her ear. She doesn't know that she needs to hold it here and talk. It's very, very sort of, to me, it was an eye-opener. I think the way the business will interact with procurement will fundamentally change. All these intake tools that are coming now, they're a standalone product. The whole underlying product will change, will absorb them. So in terms of the ways the function will run will fundamentally change, and then how we staff it, how we run it, the value proposition will evolve within the next 3 to 5 years. Sitting here, I don't know exactly how it's going to look like because technology is changing so fast. Things are evolving so fast that I'm struggling to say 5 years from now what I'm going to do. Because the majority of those things, I don't understand we say people-centric. But what will be the role of a person within that ecosystem has to be redefined, rethought
Yeah, we have to
restructure.
embrace and evolve. That I
Yeah.
think is for sure, yeah? John, real quick for you.
I see it in the future as a orchestration layer. You're in a conversational chat experience. You as a user don't know whether you're talking to the machine or the human, and that's how seamless it'll be. You'll be interacting with your queries, and it'll be very self-enabled. So the future is we will have people still working in procurement, but can you imagine that they're going to work along the AI agents, and in org charts you're going to have AI agents and humans, and that's really what it will look like. It'll be a very strange environment, and it'll be very self-enabled. People will be able to get access to where we all struggle today. Everybody wants data at their fingertips. You will have that data, and today we're in a place where we actually can sit with the C-suite, work on demand management, work on planning, organize their budgets, tie the budget to the P&L, etc. And that's truly where the strategic role of procurement will completely shift into being a true enabler for the business in the future.
Yeah. Martin?
Yeah, maybe to see it from a software vendor perspective where this is all heading to. By the way, 5 years is quite difficult to predict.
Yeah, that's why I said 3 to 5.
Considering
I
what
did
you,
say 3 to 5,
what you
but go
see
ahead.
right now, how fast it's evolving. But it was actually Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, who said software is dead. It's all about services as a service. Meaning you are not buying a software anymore, you buy basically resources, right? You buy something which solves a business problem. And this is a fundamental shift in how you adopt any kind of technology. It's all heading towards services. And why? Because, and you just pointed that out, might be that there's somebody in your org chart who is, at iCertis we call it Vera, by the way, from Veritas, belief and truth, is there will be probably somebody in your organization who is seen as a resource, has access to multiple systems because technology will be more integrated and speaking to other technologies, and they help you to make a decision. I think this is where it's aiming to. It's really the agent with a human being collaborate on a business problem to get the best possible result. This is where it's heading to.
Thank you. Amardeep, anything you want to add?
I think everyone said it fairly nicely. I can't begin to predict the future, but what I would like to see AI do is help procurement to be pretty much always on self-optimizing, being able to anticipate risks, suggest strategies, and really help the humans within our department that will still be there to make them be a true strategic partner.
Cool. I like that. Any questions in the audience? Lady here in the front. Somebody's coming with a mic. Quickly.
Careful.
Hi, thank you very much for this speech. It's very insightful. Just one quick question. The AI pilot trial failure rate was mentioned over the discussion several times, and the 95% is a bit staggering, at least to me. I assume if they have such high rate as a topic might put off many companies to consider that. But why the 95% failure rate is well recognized, but still so many companies are invested on it. And not only the company, but also from the investors, from the industry technology, people are so welcoming it. What is the real driving force behind it, despite such higher failure rate? Thank you.
Who wants to take it?
I can try and answer.
Go ahead.
I think what I've seen, the underlying reason being majority of the business functions, they look at the requirements at their own level and they don't see the bigger picture. So they develop one solution for one part, doesn't talk to anything else, becomes a burden, fails, goes away. To me, majority of the cases is either that or over promises and hype from the actual service providers that I'm going to come in and make life beautiful for you. You go in, you realize it didn't make your life more beautiful, caused more complexity, more confusion, more resources to maintain and manage that sort of agent. That's what we've seen so far, but then it could be different companies.
Yeah, I mean, maybe what I'll add coming from Coupa is what you often see is that just the fact that you buy technology wherever they are on the Gartner Magic Quadrant, whatever, is if you don't look at your process and your operating model and you don't institutionalize it and you don't drive the change, it doesn't matter. If you give me a Ferrari, I have no license, I will crash it. And I look at technology no different. So I wanted to add that. And maybe we can afterwards also please ask others what their opinion is. Is that okay? Is there any other questions? There's somebody here in the front, or sorry. And then the lady here in the red.
Sorry.
Hey guys, Jonathan from Basware. This is an oversimplification, but particularly for Amardeep, it sounds like this is really about enabling people from doing to deciding. But to me, it feels like there needs to be something to move towards, right? Which is if we get all these functions into these strategic resources, if we think about senior leadership making decisions, what kind of conversations are you having with senior leadership in terms of what can we actually point that strategic resource towards and what outcomes can we drive?
That's a great question. I think if we look at, and if we're truly honest about all of our procurement functions, there's areas in each aspect that needs to be made better. There's a combination of the fact that AI is so new, everyone kind of thinks, oh, we kind of we need it, but we actually don't know where and what. And when we can get to a point of letting the hype sort of die down a little bit and then seeing what's left in the mist, I think what we'll be left with are real agents that are useful to our job, to enable us to do what we do. By giving us the power and giving other people the power to do that, I believe that we are going to be able to, that frees up the time for everyone else to apply their knowledge, their thought, their individual input to change the way procurement looks. And I just, that's the bit I can't tell you what's going to happen, but I do know that it will free up a lot of human compute power that's going to change the way procurement actually ends up being.
No, I like that. Can we do more questions? Is that okay? There's a question here in the front. Sorry, Martin. Yeah.
Hello, Sarah from Reach. How important is it to have an independent AI governance team within the company? And should that be under the auspices of procurement, or should it be separate?
It's a really good question, and I can speak from experience. I think with any sort of due diligence or approval system, it needs to be cross-functional. So I don't think any approval of any tool, whether it's for AI or cybersecurity, data privacy, whatever it might be, needs to just be one team. I don't think it's just procurement. So I think it does need to have that sort of cross-functional decision-making board. So I think you've got to think about the commercial aspect. So is this the right decision? Is the right tool from a cost perspective? And as we were talking about AI selection and due diligence, should also look at what are the use cases, can we apply it elsewhere, or is it only looking at a really siloed use case? So I think, again, that can't be one person. It's not just procurement, it's not just IT. It needs to be cross-functional. Yeah. So I think any of those kind of due diligence approval boards, forums, whatever you want to call them, it's really important to make sure that you've got all of those functions involved. And I think typically that should be probably cybersecurity, data privacy, legal, finance, and procurement, of course. I think the important part is at what point do they get involved, and I think it should be at that sort of innovation side of things. So if you're looking at a strategy, a business strategy, what are the tools that you need to enable that, to support that? Look at it from a solution perspective or application as well, not just thinking about due diligence. So I think it's both of those. But to answer your question, I don't think it's one person. I think it's a cross-functional team.
Yeah, love that. I think if there's any IT folks in the room, close your ears. What I always want to say is if you let IT decide, it's the same as a mechanic buying a car, right? You'd never want to buy a car as your mechanic, right? You want to control it. So we should be involved. Depending on where that AI fits, that should be the driver, right? If it's for procurement, the CPO should drive the discussion. Not IT, not finance, not legal. It's cross-functional. I couldn't agree more, Sarah. But I do want to just always make the point, don't let IT decide what your platform is, because again, it's the same as like mechanics buying a car, which obviously is a terrible idea. Any final comments here? Because we're at time, and I'm getting already the nod here.
Oh, wow. I see more and more AI kind of departments. It started with remember then there were chief digital officers. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They defined a team who was looking after data, and then they hired data analysts. Right now the trend is that you have a team who's looking not just about the risks, are we compliant, is this ethical and so on, what are the business opportunities?
Yeah,
Because
totally.
your own business model might need to change and maybe is so disruptive that your company needs to think about how you continue to run your business. So there must be an AI team in both ways. What are the risks? What are the opportunities? What can we do strategically as a company?
Yeah, and what's the cost of not doing it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I love it. All right, can I just ask a quick round of applause here for the audience, for the panelists? Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, panel, and thank you, Michael. Not bad moderating, I have to say, from this end.
That's right.
I think I'll just step to one side and leave the rest of the day to you, Frank. A little earlier, we were touching on about the people aspect of your transformation, the people aspect of introducing AI, and I'm glad you did. It's something that is always uppermost in my mind, and that's exactly what we're talking about next. Keeping your teams together and on track in a change of everlasting change. How do you do it? Well, some insights from Nina, an old friend of ours, formerly of Dormakaba, but now at Hamburger Energy Worker, and that's in a couple of minutes as soon as we've changed the stage over. So thank you, panel.
Thank you.